Isn't that cool? I love our new intro so
A
much.
great intro, yeah.
Thank you. Shout out to actually Killer Visuals, the folks we worked with on our rebranding, for providing me the assets in order to be able to do that. It's awesome. Thank you very much. And so thank you as well. Welcome everybody to another episode of our Puget Systems Podcast live Q&A show. This week we have our tech support manager, Ben Nelson, here with us today. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Ben, for taking time out of the day. I know I'm sure as a manager you're quite busy, so I appreciate fitting us in. To start off, go ahead and give yourself a little intro, tell us what you do and all that jazz.
Sure. Well, thank you for the intro so far. But yeah, my name is Ben Nelson. I'm the technical support manager for Puget Systems, meaning that I'm responsible for all the tech support from our department, everything from the repair department and physical repairs to also, remotely diagnosing, issues in the field and managing the team that does that as well. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Cool. What led you to be just to start off with some basic stuff? What led you to get you into the spot where you are now?
Yeah. How far back do we want to go? I'd say a little bit. I'll go when I first. So I went to community college and Clark College down in Vancouver, Washington. And then I finished out my degree in Western Washington University up in Bellingham, and I had studied business management and computer science for the most part. And I'd always just had like a tech interest and background. Worked a bunch of kind of like oddball tech jobs, doing some programming work, working at Target Electronics, like just all over the part, doing a lot of retail stuff. But when I graduated, I moved down to this area to be with my then girlfriend, now wife. And so the first job that I took actually after graduating was for a mobile storefront manager. So for Cricket Wireless, if you've heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was my first job. It was definitely a journey and an experiment. I remember one of the interview questions that I took was, how do you feel about like not having a lot of resources and just figuring things out? And that's 100% what it was. It was a journey, a lot to learn and figure out. But I enjoyed it. Phones is definitely not the same type of tech that, I do here, but having that background is always good.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, then I kind of, I wasn't really getting the help and support that I needed in that role. And a lot of long hours kind of by myself. I had to hire everyone for that store. A lot of like 60-hour plus weeks, and just not a lot of satisfaction out of that. And so I got recruited by a car rental company, and it was definitely a steer away from tech. But I was like, okay, this is different. I'll try this.
Yeah.
They had a great organizational like movement. Their management program, like they bring you in as kind of a manager in training, and then they kind of build you up for that.
Oh, cool.
They had a lot of promising aspects in the structure that I wasn't getting at the phone wireless store. And so I saw that structure and I was just immediately pulled into it. But one thing that was evident early on was that job was a grind. And the biggest grind in that was kind of selling insurance and like upgrades to people through rental cars, which makes sense. I mean, that's what they do, but that grind was, kind of, it was a lot, and it wasn't really what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So then I just got lucky, looked at Indeed, wanted to get back into the tech sector after, mostly doing kind of sales and, car rental stuff for about a year, and lucked out and found Puget Systems. And yes, we'll never, I'll definitely look back and learn from the jobs that I've had in the past, but I'm very happy. I'm now I'll hit 4 years here in June with Puget Systems. So
wow, right on.
I'm very happy, but I will say, for whoever's watching or listening, that like, don't settle, like make sure that you're satisfied in what you're doing. And if you're not having, that passion or not feeling fulfilled every day, then, be comfortable moving around. It could take a little while, but once you find a company that, truly makes you happy, it'll be totally worth it. So
I totally agree. And if you're stuck in something you don't like, you can try and spend some of your free time like either improving yourself or wiggling your way into those different communities and stuff for
Yeah.
the things that you do like to do.
100%.
That's really good advice. So you kind of had some questions that you gave to me, and we'll start going down on that. Because since you're the tech support manager, and a lot of times people don't often get to peek kind of behind that curtain in the same way that we had Jared on a couple weeks before. He gave a lot of good insight into how the sales process works, the mentality of our consultants, and just kind of the benefit to all of that. And so that's kind of what we're going to cover a little bit here too, is because I feel like that our consultants at the beginning and our aftercare, the support, are huge parts of what you are really paying for when it comes to Puget systems. Because it comes up all the time. Oh, I could build that for half the price, and people don't realize what they're really paying for. It's not just the parts. It's the ahead of time. It's all the testing and all the knowledge and things that we have done to offer a product that is worthwhile, but then also the support when something does go wrong. And so let's talk about that a little bit. Kind of what's the process, I suppose. Like, okay, something's wrong, and
then they find their way to contact us as a whole. But no, you're totally right on, like, a lot of the times, the product or what we provide, like sometimes that can just embody like just the system, but that's totally not what our product is. Our product is everything from the top down, from all the work that happens in marketing to prepare what hardware we want to put in the system, to the consulting process, to then getting that hardware, and then everything past that life of the hardware too for dealing with support. So our product is that entire thing, not just the system. And so sometimes that gets a little confusing. But yeah, so if there are problems, like that's why we have a technical support department for. It's not just here's the system, good luck, figure things out. We ran all these benchmarks and reports, and this is the hardware that you need, but now it's up to you to figure out. No, not at all. We're still here to help out. And it's our service team as a whole. I know even consulting, even though their role isn't technical support, they care about what the end user is doing too, and making sure that their system is running correctly. So it is like the entire service team, but we're always only an email or a call away. We do work off of, as most kind of tech support departments do, a ticket queue. And so, we pride ourselves in how quickly we can get back to our requests. I know probably several of you have, reached out for a support ticket and something or another and not had a response back within like 24 hours. Or when you do get a response back, it's like, hey, thanks for your submission. We hear you. We'll reach back out within, X amount of hours to help out. No, we're pretty unique in that we have either an hour callback window in the event that we're not able to take a call during our business hours, or a 3-hour window for emails that come in. We pride ourselves on getting back to you before then, and we're really good at it.
Yeah, that's cool. Because usually, at least the email is usually 24 hours. Like I expect at least the next day. So to hear that, wow, man, 3-hour turnaround, that's great.
Yeah. And of course, if it's anything like immediate, like systems down, not working, then it's a phone call away, for an immediate response and attention. So
yeah. Wow, that's cool. So, okay. I know in the past, so our support has definitely changed over the years. I know from in the beginning for me, it was a lot more hardware focused. Whatever, micro stutters from the graphics card or whatever. And it seems more now that the people expect a lot more of a software support from us. And how have you handled that shift?
Yeah, that's a totally reasonable point too. Since we are experts, and understand the software like workflow to be able to configure these systems, it's kind of expected almost that our technical support department has that same knowledge. So we have evolved quite a bit, and to be able to accommodate that, it is tough though. There are so many, software applications, like one small, update, bug, patch can come through to mess with all of that. At the end of the day, we are like hardware experts, and that's what we continue to like refine our like technical focus on. But we also have a bunch of tools and resources to help grow like the knowledge for things like Premiere Pro, Photoshop, After Effects, all of our like recommended system line. We work to like at least have a baseline understanding of that. So when a user calls in and says, "Hey, I'm having workflow issues. My playback keeps dropping resolution all the time." It's not like, "Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about. Reseat your memory." It's nothing like that. It's we'll connect, we'll understand what's going on. We'll definitely validate the hardware, make sure that everything's healthy there, and then we'll help as best as we can with the workflow. And then we have tools to either transfer if we need to get like Premiere Pro involved, like with Adobe support. We also have workflow consultants that we can reach out to. Matt, which I'm sure a lot of you know, is great with fielding all of our questions. Honestly, all the labs guys are. Whenever we have questions, like for whatever their software specialty is, we just reach out, and they're always awesome and willing to help us out too. So
that's good. Right on. I guess in a similar vein, we'll touch on kind of what separates our support from others, I suppose, because I think particularly there was one customer, a review that we had right at the very end, was how they tell all their friends that if you want like an Apple Care level but better, and that I think is pretty high praise.
Yeah, we are very fortunate and kind of lucky that we're given the freedom to kind of do whatever we need to not just like correct the issue, but be able to just like provide a good experience in the process of it. So like, for example, let's say a system in the field, like they rely on Wi-Fi and they're having a major issue where that chip on that motherboard like is faulty, not working. For them, they need to get their work done. They need to be able to like collaborate with their peers, share their project. And maybe they don't have Ethernet, or they only have like a limited resource with it, or they have to move their system all the time for it. Our understanding of that, we just want to get the user like to be able to complete their job and their workflow. So we'll send them like, a lot of the time, like a USB network card or something that they can use in the interim to be able to at least get online, collaborate, get their job through their project. And then it's like, oh, hey, let's get down and, do you have time to troubleshoot now? Okay, let's get down to it. We can do some remote diagnostics now. We can get the system in for repair. But our number one priority, like always in those senses, is just like, how can we get the end user to be able to like get their job done? And so they're not, losing money, and they're able to use their system as needed. So it is kind of unique. It's not just like, hey, let's focus on the problem and just correct the problem. It's, hey, let's look at the scenario as a whole and do what we can. So
that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that. That's a good point. The flexibility. Each management and the teams in general too are kind of given that flexibility to kind of just make it right without having to go through a lot of hoops and paperwork and stuff. That's pretty cool. So I've been upstairs or here for the last year. I know that the team has grown since I've had more direct contact. So a two-part question that I have. One, I guess, how big is the team now? And two, does each team member like specialize in a particular workflow, or like do we have the Linux guy or the Premiere gal or whatever? Or is it a little more like, how does that work?
Good questions. So first off, we're a team total of 8 people now. We do have some kind of flexible coverage too from like consultants that are cross-trained in support. So that's always awesome to get them down. But we have 8 kind of full staff support members. 2 or just under 2, we have like 2 repair techs, but one of those repair techs kind of flexes back and forth with support quite a bit depending on the current like repair queue that we have. And then we have 6 like full-time support techs as well. So, and then so the specialty question. Yes and no. It used to be like a point of emphasis, especially when I first started, where it was like, hey, kind of pick a bucket and then refine, that bucket of expertise. And so that was good in a sense. The problem there that we ran into is if that person was tied up or moved to something else, then there was no redundancy in that specific matter. So we do try to, overlap and get more people kind of refined in a bigger array of the different applications or or workflow and Linux and everything. That way we can kind of help cover each other, and we've had a better experience that way. So if there's not somebody like directly there to help with an Ubuntu install or something, then we typically have someone else that at least have the foundational knowledge to get through that as well. So
nice. Okay, that's smart, because I was thinking, like, man, if somebody's sick or whatever, like,
exactly.
Oh, sorry, we'll have to get back to you. So that's really good. So I don't want this to turn into a big tech support sort of talk, but there is a question from YouTube that's kind of tech-y, but if we could just maybe get a quick suggestion on this one.
Sure.
Geronimo 1810 asks, for some reason the 2 USB ports on the front of my PC don't work. Nothing's disconnected. I looked inside of my PC and I don't know if it's software or dead.
So
maybe just off the cuff suggestion.
Front USB ports aren't working, it looks like. Well, one thing, if you feel comfortable and can take a quick peek inside your system, I would just look to see if that front panel connector is connected or if it wiggled loose, especially if the computer's been moved recently. Don't go like monkeying around, pulling a bunch of things or messing around too much in there, but just like a quick look. If you can get a flashlight in there, look for those front panel USB connectors. Also, it sounds like the ones in the back, I'm assuming, are working properly. So it could be hardware and it could be those front ports is where I would lean a little bit on starting.
Right on. How has the remote work been going for you in particular, and then the team in general?
It's I mean, it's definitely had its challenges, as every company has gone through the past year, and now we just had our year reunion of all of this recently. So it's been a long time. We've definitely adapted and come a long way. But it's a struggle for everyone. It's especially a struggle kind of for me and my the way I'd like to build a department. I really value the in-person interaction, like being able to see people's body language. Being able to have just off the cuff discussions right after a phone call to be able to digest, especially in a tech support role where a lot of people aren't calling under the best circumstances. It's really nice to just have someone you can lean on and just say hey Ben, that was a tough, phone call. Mind if I talk to you about it? We can still do that remotely, but it's proven to be challenging. But that being said, we've done a lot to kind of get where we are today. Luckily, we have, several tools. We use Slack for messaging, where it's really easy to even do a video call on Slack with people. We use Zoom for meetings. We rotate into the office here and there. We're still, slowly, we're not dumping everybody back in. So we're still getting together. One of the luxuries I have is we all are into video games. That's a common hobby for all of us. So we're able to do, we do every other Friday. We have a game night and we just all get together and just, it's a time for us to hang out outside of work. Since we're losing a lot of that, just in-person interaction. And although it's the last thing you want to do after sitting on a computer all day for work is then get on it. But when you're playing games, it's a little bit different. So we all enjoy, right now. Recently, we've been playing a game called Duck Game. Pretty funny. You shoot each other with little guns as ducks, and then a zombie game called Killing Floor 2, which we've been into. So
right on. That's great. Yeah, Duck Game is hilarious. I think it looks a lot of fun. I've seen a few other people playing it, so it's great.
It gives some belly laughs, that's for sure. Especially when you get to pick on your coworkers for it too. It's a joy.
Oh, that's great. I was thinking about the remote. Oh, you mentioned that people are calling in. It's not always the best day. Oftentimes, coming from a technical background, those sort of high energy human interactions can be really anxiety inducing. At least for someone like me, it was very tough to be in a telephone tech support position. I get real hyped up. How do you guys handle that? I suppose training into that, de-escalation, things like that, and handling those sort of angry, overwhelming emotional calls.
Yeah, a lot of it is empathy and understanding is the biggest thing. Everyone comes from a different path, walks in different shoes. So maybe the person that just called in, they have a deadline where a project is due the next day and they're stressed out. and they could be taking that out a little bit on us too. But if we understand and are able to kind of, see where they're coming from a little bit, that makes it easier, and for us not to get offended and be able to, realize that, hey, this person's just in a tight scenario. Like, let's do what we can to help them out, but they're not trying to just be rude or vulgar against us.
Right.
It's just where they're at right now. And that really helps. Just getting off and starting like on that foot really sets us as an advantage. So,
do you have any particular like resources you as a manager turn to handle or to train the others to kind of better handle those situations?
Yeah, that's a good question too. There's some, there's a lot of like online learning things. Like we do Lynda trainings on that here and
Mm-hmm.
there. Some of it is a little bit, I will say, trial by fire.
Sure.
Of like once you experience it, and then hey, let's debrief and talk about it and learn from it. That's actually a pretty effective way. When we were able to all be in the office too, as we were kind of training people, it's a lot easier to pick up on those conversations. You can kind of see when, maybe a tech's getting rattled a little bit. So it's a lot easier when you're in person as well. But luckily, all of us had a decent amount of experience before going full-time remote, where we had already kind of worked in a lot of that training. But yeah, I'd say the best resource is kind of do it and then digest and make sure you learn from it. Like, don't just end the conversation with, wow, that went horrible, I don't know what to do when that happens again. Let's talk about it and figure it out. So.
Right on. That's cool. This might be getting a little into too much detail, but I'm curious, do you guys like kind of go over previous calls, or like either recording or just through the notes, like just sort of a review every once in a while of either particularly tough ones or just random?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I make a priority is every Monday we meet, and Monday is our busiest day. So it's like, it takes a lot to take time away from our Monday, but it's so important that we were able to kind of digest tickets a little bit all together as a group. So we actually take an hour on Monday to talk about tickets like that. We also talk like if we're stuck on a particular ticket, like that's our time. Hey, we're all together in the same, virtual environment over Zoom now. Let's talk about the ticket. What can we do? Other suggestions. Sometimes, you just need someone else's input. But that's also the time too to share like, oh man, this was a really tough phone call. This is the route that I went. It didn't go so well, so we went this route, so we can definitely digest and talk about those scenarios. And we do that every Monday. So
Right on. Oh, that's cool. That's good to know. I always like to know a particularly challenging issue, and I ask about this from in a lot of different workflows that was just incredibly challenging, but also like that give you that sense of pride and satisfaction for having completed it, for doing it, and like, yes.
yeah, that's a good one. I will say the best, like the feeling, that encouragement feeling that I get is it could honestly be like a trivial issue, but it's like whatever the client's reaction is, if that gets extended from them. So let's say it's something super silly like, hey, you have an external drive plugged into your system that's causing, all the loss of time while you're working or whatever the case is. But if we help like diagnose and like prove that that's the factor, and they just become so giddy with joy and just so thankful, like those are the ones that are pretty satisfying. So kind of they're kind of like branching off of them or like feeding off of their energy a lot. But like to tack onto that, when it is a workflow issue that's like a major hindrance to their job, like just as much as like providing a solution to improve their workflow, if they get the system and it's like not improving their workflow because of a technical issue, we get the opportunity, to still make up for that and help figure that out. And so they actually get like the investment that they were hoping to get from that system. And so they're typically pretty giddy for that. I mean, most people are happy if they're able to get more money or return from their computers. So
Sure. I'm curious about any sort of maybe interesting or kind of like the weirder issues maybe that we've either from repair, because sometimes oh, there's a waffle in the CD drive, or or over the phone. There's got to be, it's because when you have customers, there's always something.
We've got some fun ones. I remember one coming in the inbox. It's like, oh no, support. My cat ate my antenna again. Like, it's not the
Again?
first time it's happened. It was like the again statement. That's pretty funny. We've had someone ship us a computer in for repair that we were troubleshooting for a long time. That wasn't even our computer. And then, so that was kind of entertaining as we unboxed it and we're like, wait a minute, this is, like one of our competitors. So we ended up just kind of shipping it back. It's kind of a little funny, like, but yeah, one of probably a ticket that will always stick out for me that I was like very much invested in. It was early on. When I started working in support, was I was working with this video game music production gentleman, and he was like the lead audio production for like all the Batman Arcane games, like Arcane Asylum and all of those. Did stuff like Fear as well. But it was really awesome because I hopped on a remote session, worked with him on and off for about a month. And on and off, that can definitely vary quite a bit. It depends totally on whenever they have time to troubleshoot, because they're in the middle of producing content,
right?
Or in this case, like audio. And it was it was just awesome and really inspiring to see just how much like passion that this gentleman like put into all of his work, and that it definitely fed into like all of our interactions, and it was great. And I do remember the outcome. Like, we spent about a month working through it, but it was a software issue related to the audio service that he was working. But I remember like finding out, and he was very apologetic. Like, I spent so much of your time. Like, thank you so much. And I was like, don't worry about it. I learned so much in this experience. I honestly had a lot of fun. And I'll like never forget this one too. So it was awesome.
Oh, that's cool. I have similar when I see, because I'm in the social media stuff. And I often have to keep quiet about it because, you can't talk about customers and stuff, but I get like, oh, we helped that person, and that's so cool. That is really, really neat. I like.
It's inspiring. You feel like you are making a difference, a lot of the time, even if it's just providing technical support, but you are making a difference for a lot of like what the creators with our systems, and you put these systems in the right people's hands and they can do amazing things with them. And so it's always eye-opening to see that.
Always fascinated by the things people are doing with the tools that we make for them. It is always mind-blowing. What is the most common technical problem that we get?
Oh, one of the most common ones.
Is it printers? It's always wireless printers, isn't it?
Oh, printers, yeah. Printers are like a swear word. Sometimes networking can be like pretty frustrating as well. But one of the most common issues I would say is like something as simple as like kind of no display coming out of a monitor.
Oh, sure.
This happens quite a bit on new systems too. Like customer sets their system up, gets everything all set and comfy, ready to go, plugs in their monitor and not getting anything. And a lot of the time that complaint looks like my computer doesn't work, or, it's not super descriptive. But, not having a display or image means your computer doesn't work at the same time. So yeah, that's a pretty common one. If it is a new system, typically that means the end user is like plugged into the motherboard or onboard video versus the video card. If there's a discrete video card, most of the time it needs to be plugged in there. But so that's a pretty common one. And it, the orientation of our systems, it's more convenient to plug into the motherboard since it's kind of up higher on most systems. So a lot of end users, it's like, it's just the easiest way for them to plug in, and so that happens quite a bit.
Yeah, right on. Actually, you kind of mentioned something that in the past that I've had trouble with. How do you customer calls up? Well, kind of like it's getting the, like, how do you go about getting the right information out of the customer? Because oftentimes, like you said, they'll call up or the email will just say my computer doesn't work. Well, or oftentimes the problem that the customer has isn't really the problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so how can you describe how you guys go about getting the right thing from them so you guys can get further along that path?
Absolutely. It gets a lot easier over time. Like the more you do it, the more you can kind of pick up like phrases that you'll hear and can kind of tie those together as you kind of match it with what hardware that's being, asked about.
Hmm.
But I would say like is like it's called like the KISS method, but keep it simple, stupid, just like the very, start very simple and just ask like, typical like environmental questions, like what all do you have plugged in? Where is this plugged in? Can I get a video of the noise or a picture of the noise? Just start really basic and work out from there. Like a lot of the times too, we'll get like a very complex issue where a user will reach out with like 10 lines of things that they've already tried and like, attached reports, Excel spreadsheets of like all, the symptoms come up, like what time they are, which are great and very helpful information. So for any users listening out there, don't stop sending that information in. But a lot of the times it's just starting just very simple and just, like what do you have plugged in? What are your monitor settings? Good. Go start from the basic and work your way up, honestly.
Right on, right on. I suppose we could touch on current issues. Like what are you guys dealing with nowadays?
Oh,
Anything in particular that you want to point out to, or?
yeah, I will say just like generalizing things, it is pretty tough to just keep up with the rapid change in hardware all the time, especially like where we're at with supply. And we are trying to like, confine like our offerings and really like cater to, the specific platforms that we want to carry, but supply doesn't really follow those rules. And if we can't get something, then we need to certify, another part or substitute part for that. And so it kind of forces us to gain the knowledge of like all these backup components as well at the same time. So I could say that's pretty tough, especially in a time like now where there's so many shortages out there, where we're just like, okay, what can we get our hands on? Okay, let's learn about that product. And there's so many niche things, so many. Every different motherboard that you have, there's going to be something specific about it that will be different from the next. So yeah, I would just say like we've really had to scatter and be comfortable just learning new things quickly, and you're learning about new parts a lot quicker than we have in the past.
Yeah. That's cool. Is there two things? First off, Flo, I see your question. We'll get to that in just a sec. Is there a particular software now, or actually, let me rephrase this. I imagine just because we sell to particular industries that Adobe is probably whatever Adobe product is probably the most common, like, hey, my Adobe product isn't working. But I feel like that's more just because that's a product of how many we sell. But is there one in particular that seems to be incredibly problematic? Not to pick on anybody, but sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's tough without throwing the biases of how many systems that we put into the creative market, because that's a huge chunk of our business. So it still would probably be the Adobe suite. There's just a lot of bugs with releases, and a lot of, it's kind of getting what I call is like the holy trinity of like communication with like NVIDIA drivers, whatever Adobe version it is, and then whatever like Windows update, and version you're on. If you can get those three happy and stable, like good, keep that environment for as long as you can. A lot of the time something's changing and it's going to push it out of whack. So
sure.
But I'd probably say, maybe Premiere Pro.
Yeah.
So,
which makes sense. They've been updating a lot in Premiere and in After Effects as well, especially when it comes to like GPU related tasks and things. Yeah. And I mean, you start introducing new functionalities and stuff, you're going to get weird interactions between things. So it makes sense. I think so. I do want to touch on Flo's question here. They say the monitor signal that we were talking about before reminded me. Is there a way how to fix no BIOS screen? I can't get BIOS on my monitor. Windows works fine, but BIOS is nowhere to find. I've hooked up 3 monitors. It was on monitor 3. I can't get it on my main monitor.
Can't get the BIOS on the main monitor, it sounds like. So if it's a newer video card, it'll have like an orientation for which port it'll send signal for. And most of the time, those are like goes left to right. So if you want the BIOS on your main monitor, if you can plug that into the far left port, typically, you might be able to get there. If you do have onboard video enabled, the BIOS might be going out on that monitor too. So you can try either disabling onboard video or plugging your main monitor into onboard video, which would probably better to do the first action. But hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah. And when you say furthest left, that's going to be closest to the, here, let me,
yeah,
because I have.
So if you're looking at a computer from the back, typically a lot of the times they're labeled too. So they might be labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe.
So towards this bracket side, do you mean to the left?
Yeah. So that looks like, is that a 10 series card? Oh, it's a Titan.
It is. It's a, yeah, I think it's a Maxwell Titan. It's a 10 from the 10 series. It's dead. It's
that
for
one,
illustrative purposes only.
Yeah, I mean, you'll end up flipping that around. But in that one, the orientation will likely be, at least for the digital ports, it'll go HDMI, then DisplayPort, looks like. Or is that,
so
yeah, HDMI, then DisplayPort.
Oh, so 1.
Yeah, that
2.
one's a little tricky, not the greatest example, but
okay.
like a typical 30 series cards are pretty known for this too. Like they'll orientate left to right from installed on the back. So.
Okay.
They might differ between models, but I'd say typically left to right.
Right, and I do think you're right though. They are often numbered. Like there'll be like a tiny little number stamped near each one.
Yeah.
So, let's see here. Oh, here's a good one. Torstein Sandal asks, Linux or Windows as a main preference?
Yeah, still Windows as my personal preference. But man, there's so much opportunity with Linux, especially for our department. It's so easy, and unrestricted to just test hardware and get information out of hardware. That's a lot easier to, get a desired output, and you don't have to worry about all these services running with Windows, and it's just easier. So I'm definitely trying to increase my Linux expertise, but as of now, primarily on Windows. And so is our department and our company as a whole. I would say we're pretty, most of our stuff is through Windows, but there's so much opportunity with Linux. And so we just need to continue to grow in that, honestly.
Yeah. Do you have a particular flavor? I know you guys just recently put out to Taste the Rainbow, the Ubuntu Rainbow article.
We did. That was a great article. So shout out.
It's actually really good.
Ben Bonin in our department. But I would, I mean, I've typically done the most work in Ubuntu, so that's probably what I'd reside on.
Yeah.
At least what I do.
That's fair. Yeah. Right on. Let's see. Well, I guess we may have kind of touched on this a little bit. I'm just drawing from your little framework here. What's the toughest part about being in tech support?
Yeah. Probably just not being able, if an issue is out of our control, those are tough situations to deal with. So let's say it is, a bug. We'll pick on Premiere Pro today. Let's say it is a bug with Premiere Pro. We can only, push so far. There's a lot that we can still do to help out. We can recommend, rolling back NVIDIA drivers, rolling back Premiere Pro versions, trying a different environment, new OS profile. There's a lot that we can do, but at the end of the day, if there is a significant bug or something that we can't move past, it's tough to deal with, because we kind of have to pass off to Adobe or sometimes even Microsoft.
Yeah.
And so not being able to be the one to provide that solution is tough. We understand and we're acceptive of it, because we can only go so far. We are experts in the hardware, and that means we can't capture, every single, we're not developers or software engineers for Adobe, right, unfortunately, but we try our best, but sometimes we don't have those solutions. So those are always kind of tough to explain and say, we're going to have to kind of pass you and do a handoff with another company.
Do we, so when that occurs, do we have a relationship, and I suppose in particular with Adobe, since that's our biggest, do we have a sort of relationship where they don't have to wait on hold for an hour and a half? They're not calling out some remote support place or whatever. Do we have that sort of relationship where we can hand them off to the Adobe, to the Microsoft, and have them not have to go through all the basic stuff and all that? Or is it just like, sorry, here you go? And
Yeah, it's always been tough. I will say Adobe's response times have seemed quite a bit better from the interactions that I've had recently with our end users. But the relationships that we've developed here are with a lot of senior engineers and stuff, and so they're not really the tech support relationships on a lot of those. If it's like a trending issue or something that needs to be escalated to the top, we have that connection. But typically for workflow and even kind of minor bugs per se, we do have to go through the general channels. It's a relationship that we've been continuing to build and explore other things. That's also led us to what we do for workflow consultants. And what a workflow consultant for us is a third party, uninterested. They have nothing. They're not part of Puget Systems, but they're experts in those software programs. So we have somebody who's great in Premiere Pro that we rely on a lot, and so we can even just say, hey, so-and-so, are you dealing with the same issue that, our client is? Do you have any suggestions? Can we get on a remote session, the three of us together, and try to hash this out? So we do have other, means, but no direct handoffs for kind of tech support for the most part.
All right. That's cool. I mean, when you start dealing with the big guys like that, I imagine it's hard to get in there. They got millions of customers. They got probably hundreds of thousands of tech support people.
And Puget Systems too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh. Let's see. I'll just see if there's anything in the chat real fast. I guess we kind of touched on this a little bit, but we have a few minutes. I think we could get this all in. You had mentioned the top 5 issues you see in support. We kind of asked for the most common one, but what else do you guys see, and what are the easy fixes that you guys tend to see?
Easy fixes,
or top 5, or
So we went over the no video output on the system one. That one's fairly common. So making sure that that's plugged in correctly. Making sure the input on your monitor, it's very kind of silly too, but just changing the input, cycle it through. Sometimes they're not always as smart of a monitor as you'd like them to be. And then trying new cables too on those type of issues. So swap it out. It's surprising, but cables can fail, and they indeed fail, even if it's just a signal wire, or if it's an HDMI cable, but it's not passing audio through. It's probably got a bad cable. So it's more common than you would think. Just swap out the cable too when you're not getting proper output. Mm-hmm. Another fairly common issue is waking your system from sleep, specifically in Windows. That's a very popular one. I think one of our busiest articles that we have talks about this too, and it's amazing. It always blows my mind when I check and see how much traction it gets. I think it's either a hybrid sleep one, or a waking, it has to do with sleep though, and it's very popular. But that's a very common issue.
Titled Windows 10 Sleep Issues. We put that out January 29th of this year. Maybe it was an update, but
we refined one because we had an older article, but it was just seeing so much traction and helping a lot of people. So I think we just kind of refined it a bit.
Yeah.
But for those sleep issues, the first thing that I'd recommend would just be, again, start simple. Check all peripherals, see if you have an external device that's not allowing your system to either go to sleep or wake up from sleep. Powered external USB drives. If you have ports on your monitor, USB ports, Thunderbolt ports on your monitor where there's devices connected, those could be contributing to it. First start with environmental stuff, peripherals. Then hybrid sleep is a pretty common setting within Windows to check. Okay. Hybrid sleep is just a combination of hibernation and sleep. It writes some of the information that you're working on. So if you have open applications or documents and you put your system to sleep, it'll write some to memory and then other to the drive that you're using too. So sometimes, the idea of it is great. It's a quick resume, for what the stuff that you want to be working on is, but it can cause problems too. So disabling that is a good thing. running your system in a clean boot also for if you're having issues waking up from sleep. Just trying a clean boot is essentially just like a minimal environment. It has all like the non-essential services that run, as well as like programs and applications. You disable all of those and just say, okay, this is kind of like a base version of Windows here with all of my programs disabled, and seeing if you can reproduce there, because it could be like a background application contributing to what's going on.
Sure.
And then just check kind of your end device manager to see, first off, do you have any like splats or issues with USB devices that are showing up, and then making sure that they are set to like wake the monitor too. Kind of good suggestions for those.
Yeah, right
on. More issues. A lot of like Wi-Fi Bluetooth related issues, either poor signal or just like disconnecting out of the blue. That seems to be a pretty common one too.
Yeah.
So the number one thing to do to check first is make sure the wireless antenna is plugged in.
Yeah.
It can be tricky, especially if you're coming from like a MacBook or another laptop where there's not like an obvious antenna showing, because that's built on a chip on your laptop, so it's not going to be visible. And so making sure that antenna is plugged in. I noticed at the beginning when you talked about the intro and Killer Visual Studios, we're actually working with them on a quick start guide, and one of the big things with that is going to be like, hey, take out your Wi-Fi antenna, make sure that's plugged in. So
that'll be great.
Yeah, surprisingly, that's a big one. And again, you can't really like blame our clients too when they're getting these new systems. Like the Wi-Fi antenna is in a separate box. Like they have their system working, everything's going just fine. You'll still get a signal and everything that's very like small, but without that antenna to amplify it, you're going to get a lot of disruptions. So that's the biggest thing. And then making sure, wherever you put that antenna, that if you can avoid like a lot of line of sight intrusions. So I typically recommend a lot of ours are magnetic now, so you can kind of stick them on top of your case. That's typically the best spot for it. That'll help, as long as it's not like tucked away in a corner. If you have like your system in a cubby or something like that, most of the time line of sight's okay, but something to check as well.
Yeah.
And then for Bluetooth specifically, like clear power to your system. So shut everything down, unplug the power, click that power button a couple of times to clear all residual power. But that, surprisingly, if there is an issue with like the Bluetooth chip that isn't like getting reset after restarts on your system, that clears it up. And surprisingly, that clears it up a lot. So always good. And then I'd say just typical driver play, where you uninstall drivers, look at the latest for the manufacturer, see if there's anything in the Windows kernel that might be able to make it work. So
how often, as a tech support boss, how often would you recommend someone reinstall Windows fresh?
Yeah, that's really tough. It really depends on the end user. Like me personally, like as a work computer, and I also game and do some projects on here. I do about once a quarter.
Wow.
But yeah, that might be kind of my own preferences too. And I'll try new things. I'll try like old Windows updates, new Windows updates, pre-release stuff. So I do quite a bit, but it really depends on the end user and how much like time, like maybe in between projects, if they've been having like a nagging issue or error, that would be a good time. If they have everything backed up, to do a reinstall there. There's also a lot more tools than just doing a reinstall. You can do like a Windows reset, which keeps all your files, which is a good option. So that helps. That builds kind of the core of Windows without having to go through the entire installation process. So that's a good idea. There's also tools that you can download that do like an in-place update, or like it's Microsoft's update tool, but it's from like a specific download and not something that's like built into your current Windows update system on your computer. So that's a nice tool as well. So there's options, but it's up to the user, honestly, and how comfortable and how much time they have, honestly.
Sure. Okay. I knew that one would kind of be contentious in a way. Everybody's got their own answer, Actually, Flo has another question, or a comment, I suppose. They say, I've heard some issues with the new AMD 5000 series CPUs. I don't know how much of it is true, but have you encountered with some?
Yeah, that's a good question too. We're learning, there are some kind of quirks that have come up here and there. We're seeing some trending articles right now too on
Mhm.
USB issues
Yeah, that's
with
what I
with
was
those
thinking.
processors. So right now we don't have like a solidified trend or anything in support. We're like we've been reading the articles and staying tuned, and so we're like on the lookout for it. But
Mhm.
so far we haven't dealt with that. We
That's
did
good.
have specifically on 16 core AMD, like a
Oh,
lot of the Ryzen stuff.
yeah.
Man, this has affected, I think, the last like 2 generations. We had a
So
trending issue where just at like a low kind of power state or when the system was idle, we were dealing with a lot of restarts or even just direct power offs at that state. And that ended up being a BIOS update. So some voltage changes and tweaks with that latest like BIOS update fix those issues. So
would this
we
be
do have a support article on that.
the AMD check exception
Yes,
X570?
that's the
Okay,
one, the cache hierarchy one. Yeah.
throw that out there.
So yeah, we're keeping an eye. We're hoping that the USB one isn't a trend. We haven't seen it yet, but we're like, we never know what to expect in tech support. So you're just bracing yourself and are ready to, adapt as you can.
That's cool. Where do you guys keep an eye for stuff like that?
Yeah, honestly all over. One nice thing is like our company is very interactive over all of our Slack channels, so we
Mhm.
don't even have to be the ones to directly keep an eye. I want to say it was even Jared that he shared one of the articles about the USB and the AMD CPU issues. So yeah, we have like eyes out all over the company without even like planting any seeds in anyone. We just kind of get this intel, but we do have one of the members in support, Chad, does a lot of our article writing. And he
Mhm.
spent some time looking at like he just dedicates like blocked out time, like, hey, let me look at what's kind of trending around, seeing if we have any support tickets on this. Is this going to be helpful for me to write? So he like dedicates his time. Also, in feedback from clients, sometimes unfortunately they're the guinea pigs and brings it to us.
Yeah.
So of course we're a little bit more reactive at that point, and we're not like directly on top of it if we're not the ones that discovered it, but they bring good intel regardless, and then we can quickly adapt and work out some fixes. So
Yeah. Um, have there ever been a time where we knew something was going on and like we were able to kind of like proactively keep it from ruining anybody's day? I can't think of any particular thing that comes to mind where we may have been. I suppose, like in a sense, like the Spectre meltdown stuff or anything
yeah,
where
we
we
definitely
knew.
that was a big one. We definitely pushed that out through all of our newsletters. Yeah, we do have the capability to like search all like sold systems with X hardware or
Yeah.
whatever and reach out when we need to if we see something like that come up. There hasn't been the direct opportunity to. We can like post articles and try to get those in front of people as best we can, and that typically seems to be effective. So we can reach out and just say, hey, we found a fix for this in case this is affecting you. Go ahead and just follow the steps in this guide and reach out if you need anything in the process. So can't think of a direct request recently. Probably Spectre Meltdown was the closest.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. Flo has another great question. Thank you, Flo. Any thoughts on the upcoming 11th gen Intel?
Not much
Oh,
that strength.
well, I just don't know how much we can say.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm not
say
sure when all that is.
Not much that's trickled down to support pretty much. One thing that I'll say is the tech support manager is I wait for things to get qualified and then kind of pushed my direction and then I read up on it. For a lot of it, it's as tough as it is to like stay ahead on tech and all the changes. It just takes a lot of time. So we have great people that are part of our product team that educate us as these products are coming out, and so that's what I kind of wait for. So honestly, I don't know too much on my end anyway. So
Okay. I have to remember. Oh, I'm
yeah.
always caught in the weird position of like, was that from John from somebody at Intel? Like, can I say? And yeah, I always I'm always very, very, very careful. I'm curious, what are you most excited about coming in the future? Not just in like the tech support space, but just in general, in all of what we dabble in and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's a ton to be excited for. Probably closest to me and what's going to like improve a lot of like my day to day is just as we continue to adapt and as the world changes with what's going on with COVID. I'm excited to see how Puget adapts with that. You know, like I was saying earlier, how much to see like in person and face to face communication. A lot of that goes back to a lot of the sports that I've played to in the past and just having that like team camaraderie. And you don't really play baseball or basketball or football like on remote sessions together. So it's well, you can in video games, but that really like builds me up and gives me a lot of energy, like in person, like group work like that. So one, I'm excited to see, as we explore that, and we're going to take our time. We're in no rush. One thing that we have learned is we can be effective remote, and we're doing a great job, and we're excellent at that. But it does excite me, it's going back to the good old days where we're all, in the office together. And it's, we had a lot of great memories, all being together. So, we'll get there again. And so that immediately, that's what excites me. And just, seeing how we adapt with the crazy supply that's going on. It's, one thing, it's like a little scary, but on the same time, it's like exciting too, because like the architecture that's coming out is very promising and like always can turn your head and you can get excited about very easy. So as long as, that stuff still excites us too, we're patient and we wait our turn, when it trickles down to support and like, hey, you guys look out for this, that's still exciting too. So we just kind of be patient about it and wait for our turn. Yeah. And when we can get supply of it is going to be a big thing coming this year. So yeah,
that has been an interesting issue, supply, because like it's one of those, it's just another one of those things where like the general public only sees like maybe 10% of the real problem, where it's not just that there aren't enough, they aren't manufacturing enough. It's also that like they can only ship so many across the ocean at any one time. They dry docked a bunch of barge ships and stuff, like container ships and things are out of commission. Like, and it's, and I feel kind of bad for everybody along the chain, all the way from the retail person, Best Buy, all the way back to the poor folk who are in the factories trying the best they can. It's rough.
Yeah, it's like everyone is at like a disadvantage, and there's no like bright spots along the chain as it goes down to like the consumer or the user at the end of the day. It's just kind of rough for everybody. So
it is rough. Here's kind of an interesting. Oh, Kelly says I miss sales and support popping into labs. Oh. So I'm actually going to combine two questions. Geronimo 1810 asked, what do you think is better to use, Intel or Ryzen? I'm paraphrasing, but then also Tech Warner asks Intel versus Ryzen for machine learning in the long run and future.
Yeah, I'd always defer to, the testing and the consultants and what they're putting out. Right now, I know we've converted a lot to AMD right now. It's because that's had the better performance without, a loss of stability for the most part. We have seen a slight uptick in some stability numbers, but nothing to like really change. Like the performance outweighs, any stability concerns so far. So
nice.
I right now, like AMD is paving the way, but don't take my word for it. I'm not the expert in that area. But our consultants and our marketing team and our labs team, like they provide that great information to steer you those directions.
When you say stability issues, what do you mean by that?
We've had, and it's nothing. Yeah, I guess I probably should elaborate on that. It's like a percent more failure, specifically on CPUs is where we've seen it a little bit. So it's nothing, honestly. Intel's failure rates for procs have been like fantastic for us for a long time. So, we're going to have some growing pains as we start to move over. But there just seems to be a couple more quirks with AMD. Like we're needing some BIOS updates right in the field early on. But as things level out though, the stability, the performance is just fine. And it's adequate too with where Intel's at.
So when you say stability, are we talking like crash, complete like reset, complete shutdown sort of?
Yeah, like part failures.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So major issues, but
wow.
Like major failures, but
man. dead and dying procs out in the field. Obviously, a small percentage of
Yeah,
we would be carrying them.
happens. It's hardware, you know. It's
Yeah,
never can move completely away from it. But
right.
you know, our stability numbers are, you know, I think Matt typically does a report with that every.
Yeah, I think we didn't get one at the end of last year. The most what is it? What does he call it? The most reliable hardware articles. Yeah. We gotta get Matt on that. Where Q1 is over.
Yeah, we need that.
All right, so we are just over our hour. Is there anything else you'd like to mention or point out or anything? Shout, say hey.
Nice shout outs. No, not particularly. Like this was great. I really enjoyed doing this. Hopefully, you know, this information is helpful too, and just provide some transparency around our department. One day we'll, you know, hopefully return on kind of like in-person tours again to our building, and you know, you'll be able to see our department, check out our production process. Like that's always really exciting to see. So maybe we'll do that again, or maybe we just need to do another like virtual tour or something of it. And maybe see some like live support calls or consulting and stuff like that. Cause it's, you know, we got a special thing here. So
yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, I guess, okay, then we'll say goodbye. Thank you again, Ben, for taking time out of the day to join us on our live Q&A show. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, right on. And as well, thank you to the audience for joining us. We do this every Friday now at 1 p.m. Pacific, and we have a variety of content coming through. We have the labs individually, members of the labs team, consultant, support, and outside experts as well. So tune into that every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Bye.